Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone. It is the Monday, March 23rd, 2026 episode of the Marco Jure Show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to hear today's groundbreaking news right here in America and across the board, where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Let's begin the best hour of radio, informative, uncensored, unapologetic, and ready to go. I've got a great show lined up for everyone today, so let's delve into it right now together. Let's not waste any time. The rhetoric that has gone on over this weekend has now intensified. It's now more escalatory. And I want to ask you, my listeners, one thing. How many of you that voted for President Donald Trump believe that we'd be now starting new wars in the Middle East at this point in his second term? Did any of you actually think that would be the case right now? Did you ever think for a second that we'd be talking about more wars, getting more money for more wars? Of course you didn't. And by the way, I'm still seeing the cognitive dissonance now online. If you had told me back in 2024 that we'd be now starting more wars, bombing 8 different countries right now, I would have told you that you were crazy. I would have retorted that President Trump wants peace, that he wants to get us out of these kinds of needless forever wars. He's tweeted about using diplomacy for years. And again, we all believe that he wanted the peace to exist. He wanted to be the peace candidate. And that Republicans did not want to take this route. America first, if you will, right, folks? That's what we all believed in. Yet here we are. It's almost April of 2026, and the economy has not yet begun this vibrant explosion of more jobs, lowering costs, along with higher wages for the average American, higher GDP, companies returning to the United States, and getting our spending under control, weeding out the malfeasance that has been used with the likes of Doge, like we had thought. We couldn't wait for it. Yet here we are today. And now I feel like telling you I think World War III is just getting started. President Trump over the weekend gave Iran 48 hours to open up the Strait of Hormuz, giving them the ultimatum that had they not, the United States would now begin striking Iran's energy infrastructure, their power plants, their nuclear sites, essentially shutting down all access to electricity and power throughout the entire country. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is a war crime in the truest sense of the term. But now, this morning, he has since rescinded these remarks, which makes me want to begin today's show with an article out of the New York Post, which says the following. Take a listen to this. President Trump announced Monday that the United States would not attack any part of Iran's power and energy infrastructure for 5 days after Washington and Tehran engaged in very good and productive talks. He went to Truth Social and said, I am pleased to report that the United States of America and the country of Iran have had over the last 2 days very good and productive conversations regarding a complete, total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. And of course, people are very happy about this. They say it's 4D chess, 5D chess, 6D chess, whatever chess they want to be playing right now. That's what President Trump's doing right now. And it's as a result because this was the end game all along. It's just those damn Iranians that want this. But yet the opposite is true. What else did he say? He said, based on the tenor and tone of these in-depth, detailed, and constructive conversations, which continue throughout this week, I have instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period, subject to the success of the ongoing meetings and discussions. That sounds good, right? Hey, we're not working at war. We're talking to them now. We're going back to diplomacy, right? That was what we wanted all along. We wanted diplomacy last June, right before we let Israel bomb them. And of course, we ended up bombing them as well in the 12-day war. And of course, we wanted diplomacy as we were amassing our fleet right outside of Iran. Before, of course, Israel and we attacked them yet again amid negotiations, which again is a war crime. Again, I want to make that very clear to everybody that's listening. I tell you how it is. If it's a war crime, I tell you it's a war crime. If it's not, I'll tell you it's not. But these are the facts. This is what's taking place right now. The problem with all this, Iran quickly disputed Trump's claims about having talks with the Foreign Ministry Department. They wanted to issue a statement saying that the remarks made by the United States president are part of the efforts to reduce energy prices and buy time to implement his military plans. I think they figured it out by now. I've got to tell you, I think they figured him out by now. They know that we're not serious when we come to the table for negotiations. We never have been. Last June, we were going to get everything we wanted from the Iranians regarding nuclear development. Certain level of enrichment, I believe it was 3.75%. That would be the max. They would not build nuclear weapons. They would vow to agree to that. They were going to allow United States weapons inspectors to come into all their nuclear sites to inspect and to ensure that they weren't building a nuclear bomb. What better deal could that have been? And yet we threw it all away because Israel went in and started attacking them. Again, mid-negotiations. We were planning to meet them on, I believe it was a Sunday. Late that Friday, Israel began bombing them. And then we said, hey, this is great. Yep. Hey, we gave them a certain deadline. Then why the hell would you meet with them for that day then if it was past your deadline? If you told them we're going to meet on this Sunday and you bombed them on that Friday, it doesn't make any sense to me, folks. Then, of course, the media regurgitates, well, he gave him a 60-day, term to meet with them. Well, why would you meet with them on that day for the final negotiation then? Why would you set that date? Why wouldn't you set it on the 60-day mark if that was so precious to you? If I say, hey, I'm going to give you a month to buy this lease from me for this house, and we're in communication with each other, and we say, okay, that sounds great. Let's meet on, April 2nd, right? It's past the 30-day mark. And you say, okay, that's great. We'll meet that day. We'll get everything finalized. Great. And then I tell you on, March 31st, hey, take a walk. I'm giving it to somebody else. You'd say, what are you talking about? It doesn't make any sense. Well, same thing with this. This doesn't make any sense. Why would we be doing this? And we did it a second time. That's the part that's most ridiculous about all this. You can't make this stuff up, folks. And now we're talking about the Iranians coming to the table to meet with us for a third time to end this conflict. Here's what President Trump said just today.
Who is Steve Witkoff speaking with, Mr. President?
A top person. Don't forget, we've wiped out the leadership phase 1, phase 2, and largely phase 3. But we're dealing with the man who I believe is the most respected and the leader. It's a little tough. We've wiped out everybody.
Is that the Supreme Leader?
No, not the Supreme Leader.
So
we don't.
Not much time.
Well, nobody heard of the second Supreme Leader, the son.
Are these direct?
We have not heard from the son. Every once in a while you'll see a statement made, but we haven't. We don't know if he's living. But the people that seem to be running it, and they seem that based on really fact, because things they've said have taken place.
Mr. President,
Again,
Mr. President, I know you deployed.
I don't want him to be killed.
All right, enough of this. I don't want him to be killed. We murdered, we assassinated the Supreme Leader. Again, mid-negotiations. And now we're talking about not wanting to kill people. How about the 165 dead school children that we killed on day one with a double tap strike on their school? How about the 20 women volleyball players that were murdered as well? We don't want to kill people. The actions say otherwise, folks, unfortunately. The question here is, are these remarks, again, more rhetoric to control the markets? The answer to that, folks, is a yes. Absolutely 100%. Right after Trump's announcements that he made this morning, it sent the benchmark for Brent crude oil prices to dip just below $100 per barrel. Not too bad. It was roughly about $109 trading last week on Friday during the closure. We're now seeing the Dow Jones, we're seeing the S&P 500, the NASDAQ. They're all starting to rebound a little bit today. They're starting to rise. Why? Because the thought of this war ending seems to be coming to an end. at least to the investors. Again, words matter. If President Trump says that we're going to send in 1,000 troops into Iran, that might change things. But right now we're seeing the exact opposite. We're seeing rhetoric of, oh, we're coming in talking about a ceasefire. We're talking about opening up the Strait of Hormuz to let all the ships inside the Persian Gulf continue to allow their transits and what have you. We're not going to be bombing their power plants, destroying their oil fields. Iran will hopefully respond in kind and stop these attacks as well. And we'll get things moving yet again. Now, even if that were to end today, this would still take quite a bit of time to get things moving to where they were prior to this. But the markets are responding in favor of the rhetoric. That's what it's all about. Controlling the rhetoric to control the markets. Because words matter when they come from the President of the United States. And of course, his Treasury Secretary as well. Unfortunately, folks, I don't believe a word of it. And I say that to you as a conservative Republican. I think the Iranians got it right here. We just announced last week we're going to be sending roughly 5,000 Marines to the region. Again, we don't know what the mission is right now. But here's the thing. We're giving them this 5-day deadline, right? Right? A new ultimatum. We started a war, now we're going to give them an ultimatum. Okay, well, the earliest that the Marines will arrive to the Middle East, these 5,000, coming from East Asia and San Diego, will be this Friday. And for the second group, obviously coming out of San Diego, probably as early as Monday. This is for both divisions, respectively. This is nothing more than a repeat of the negotiations again, folks. We tell them, hey, we're going to give you this ultimatum by this Friday. If you agree to it, we'll cease to, doing what we're doing. We don't even know what that means. You're just going to strike the power plants, the nuclear facilities inside Iran now? I think that's going to go unnoticed by them and they're just going to walk away from it? That they wouldn't do the same to the Gulf Arab states or inside Israel, which is getting pounded right now? By the way, right now, Israel has really no control over their skies. We talk about Iran having no control over their airspace. Everything that Iran seems to be lobbing into Israel is striking. We saw the Dimona nuclear power plant where they are said to enrich their uranium for their nuclear technology, for their nuclear weapons, was hit over the weekend. Yeah, that's what's taking place right now. And then Netanyahu had the nerve to go on whatever he was on and saying that the Iranians are the ones that are targeting civilians. Really? Really? It's just laughable when you think about these things. But these negotiations, I think, are just another ruse for the Marines to come in so they can try to attempt to control what takes place on Kark Island, to open up the Strait of Hormuz, or to possibly control the oil inside that region. And now how successful that will be, only time will tell. But let me ask you this. If this is just another attempt to buy time, which I do believe it is, right? They're just buying time before the military once again gets into place. If the war were ending, if a ceasefire was within reach, being discussed right now, then why would these Marines be headed to the region right now? Why wouldn't Trump call that off? It doesn't make any sense. Again, the same question I asked you about the American naval fleet headed to the Mediterranean and to the Arabian Sea. I said, why would we be amassing this fleet if they're just going to be sitting there doing nothing, if we're in negotiations with them? And any geopolitical analyst that I was listening to at the time said, we are preparing to strike them. There is no other reason why we would be doing this. And once the right ships get into the right region, once the aircraft carriers, all the ships get into place, that's when we would start attacking. And I told you it would take place on a weekend, did I not? I said it'll take place on a weekend when the markets are closed. That way things don't dip out over the weekend. What took place? Well, that Saturday, February 28th, we, along with Israel, decided to strike them. Under no pretext, except that we wanted to strike them. That's what it comes down to. So, again, we've got to look at actions, not words, because the actions matter. We would not be sending 5,000 Marines to the Persian Gulf for no reason. So what's the reason? It's to control that island. It's to open up that strait themselves, or what they hope to do at least. I don't know what that means for the 5,000 Marines. I don't think it'll be anything positive. I don't know how they would get in there, again, with the amount of drones that the Iranians have in their possession. So it's a big risk right now for our Marines. And again, I don't know what we think we're going to accomplish with this. The only thing going through that strait right now is trading in the Chinese yuan. They're not trading in the petrodollar, which again is very devastating to the U.S. economy. That's the truth of the matter, though. And I think the United States sees this. They're upset about this. They want that oil to begin flowing because, again, we got 20% of the global oil trade is now shut off right now, with the exception of what's going to China from Iran primarily. President Trump knows, again, he understands this. He understands the economic consequences of this. He just didn't think they were going to be doing it, even though they said blatantly that they would be doing this. So I don't buy that there is any ceasefire in effect. I don't believe there's any negotiations in effect. I think the Iranians know exactly what's going on now. They said if they were attacked that they would respond in kind, and they are doing so right now. That's the truth of the matter is. I don't think there's any communication happening. Again, Trump can't tell you who he's even speaking to. Why would he tell us who he's talking to? What the actual proposal was? What did they say? Everything I've heard, and by the way, I hear from, again, very knowledgeable people, that Steve Witkoff is texting Foreign Minister Arachi, constantly asking him for a ceasefire, and he's getting no reply at all. We know on day one, hours after these attacks took place, the decapitation strike failed. We know that we reached out and asked for another ceasefire, and they said, no, this is a war now. You took out our supreme leader. You attacked us during negotiations again. Now it's on. Now we are in a war right now. And as a result, the Gulf Arab states are struggling from this. We see Israel is struggling definitely from this. I don't know what the future of Israel is going to look like. But I can tell you it's not going to look very good, folks. Not good at all. Oh, by the way, Lindsey Graham decided to make one of the talk shows over the weekend. Again, I rarely listen to what this guy says. I can't stand him at all, unfortunately. But he is somebody who greatly influences President Trump. I don't know how that came to be, but that is the reality of what takes place. This is what he said to Shannon Bream just over the weekend. Take a listen to this.
We got 2 Marine expeditionary units sailing to this island. We did Iwo Jima. We can do this. The Marines, my money is always on the Marines. I don't know if you take the island or you blockade the island, but I know this. The day we control that island, this regime, this terrorist regime, has been weakened. It will die on a vine. And here's what I want to do. I want to get with Chris. I want to sprint to peace. As the war winds down, I want peace to ramp up. The reason we don't have Saudi Arabia and Israel making peace is October the 7th, 2023. Iran through Hamas attacked Israel, stopping normalization. I want to take up and complete what Biden started. As soon as we get Iran defanged so they can never do another October 7th, I want to start up peace talks between Saudi and Israel this year. I want a peace deal between Saudi and Israel normalizing, ending the Arab-Israeli conflict. It's been going on for 2,000 years this year, and you can't do it with a lethal Iran.
Okay, so he said a lot of things there. Now he's comparing what's taking place in the Middle East to Iwo Jima, where we lost lots of our Marines, by the way. Is that what he wants to have happen again? This is the guy who is trying to influence President Trump, folks. Lindsey Graham is trying to influence President Trump to continue to do this. Does that sound like he wants a ceasefire? Does that sound like he wants to stop this conflict? And he's dreaming if he thinks that Saudi Arabia is going to come to the table with Israel after this. I doubt it. I think you're going to see a lot of different things take place inside the Middle East. I think you'll see our presence greatly diminish. I don't think that these families of these Gulf Arab states that run the countries are going to be very pleased with the United States after this all took place. We have lots of disruption in their economies. We have lots of disruption to the food and the imports coming into those countries. Desalination plants being struck because Iran's are being struck. And we're not doing anything really to defend them. We're not doing anything to really assist them. We have not allowed other ships to be brought through the strait by the United States as was first proposed. What happened to that pledge? Nobody says a thing about it anymore. Because they know Iran's got lots of drone strikes. They're able to do damage with them. We know that they can control that coastline, of course, inside the Persian Gulf, and they don't know what's going to take place. They don't know if our ships will sink to the bottom of the Persian Gulf. And these other ships in the region, they don't know what's going to take place either. Do they want to risk the chance of being struck and sent to the bottom of the ocean, or just sit there and wait this thing out? That seems to be the case right now. But all I know is that the only ships that are making their way through the strait are ships that are friends of Iran's, and they are going to trade not in the U.S. dollar, which is having a great effect on the United States right now. Just the News also illustrates that the Iranian news organizations are now citing that Iranian officials are saying that the Strait of Hormuz will not return to pre-war conditions and energy markets will remain unsettled, adding that there are not currently any negotiations with the United States. So someone's lying to us right now. Someone is lying to us right now about what's taking place. And I got to call out President Trump on this, folks. I've got to do that. You wouldn't be sending more Marines to the region if you were planning on having a ceasefire right now. That would not be what you are doing. But if your attempt is to open up the strait while we continue to attack them, by the way, Israel's attacking them right now. I just want to be very much clear on all of that. Israel's still striking inside their infrastructure right now amidst an alleged ceasefire with us. So our ally is striking them right now, and we think that they're going to agree to a ceasefire? We think that's the way this will go? Again, folks, it's clear that this is not the case right now. Absolutely 100% not happening. I don't buy it. I just simply don't buy it. I don't think the Iranians buy it. And the Iranians are the ones telling us there is no negotiations, there is no ceasefire. We haven't accepted it. We haven't even talked about it right now. Now, this, again, is going to continue on, I think, as long as we want it to continue on. I don't know how President Trump will end this. We're not seeing Iran be deterred in any way at all. Now, it says here that the Trump administration has kept Israel informed of its talks with Iran, which, again, I don't believe exist, and that the IDF should follow the United States military in suspending any targeting of Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office did not immediately respond to Reuters' request for a comment on this. And again, what do we hear as of right now? They're still targeting inside of Iran. This is their moment. This is what they want. This is what they've been waiting for this entire time. Their officials have been telling us, we've been waiting 40 years for this. This is 40 years in the making. We've wanted to attack Iran in this way, to get this regime change that we want. They're all in. The unfortunate part about this for them is that Iran's all in right now. Because this is their survival right now. They know that if they don't defend themselves, it's over for them. Now, there are people happy about that. There are people that are not happy about that. But that's the truth of the matter. So, folks, again, as I look at Brent crude right now, trading just over $100 per barrel, down some 10.15% today from over the weekend. That's why this rhetoric is being pushed out there, to control the markets. Again, you're seeing the Dow do very well today. Very, very well. Dow jumped, what was it, 700 points after Trump said that Iran and the United States have been having productive talks. Well, again, words matter. That's why we're seeing these things. Every one of these top marginal stocks are up today, by the way. But not to where they were before the war, but they're up today. And that's why you're seeing oil drop just a little bit. But again, it's still very much elevated to where it was before the war. That's why you're paying more. That's why these things are happening. And that's why the United States has been easing Iranian oil sanctions right now to scramble to contain the energy prices that we're seeing all across the world. I think that's probably the most funniest part about all this. We attack them, they shut down the Strait of Hormuz, and now we've said, okay, we'll remove these sanctions on you to get cheaper oil pushed out into production, to be pushed out into circulation. That's why we're doing this right now. You're seeing Russia make a lot of money off this too, by the way, folks. And China's still getting their oil because we know that the Iranian oil that comes out of that region that goes to China is still making its way to that area right now. That's what's taking place. Now, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said on Friday that the easing of these Iranian sanctions, which were first imposed after the 1979 revolution, would be narrowly tailored and only temporary. I'm sure they're going to love that. Permitting the sale of Iranian crude oil currently stranded at sea. There you go. Why are they doing this? Because they want that supply to be in circulation. When you cut off 20% of the supply, you have that same demand, folks. Supply and demand, that means the price has to go up. That's why we're seeing all of these things take place. Yep. Always rising right up. Look at this. Retail gas prices have risen 93 cents per gallon inside the United States as crude oil has soared more than 70% since the start of this year. Yep, it's all going up, folks. And like I told you, as a result of this, everything else has to follow suit. Everything that has oil in it will go up. It's not just your automobile that uses oil, folks. There's about 145 other different products, including medicines, by the way, that use petroleum, that use oil in them. What do you think is going to happen to those prices? They have to go up as well. So you're going to see a lot of these different markets, again, getting the products to the retail stores, too, to buy. That's going to cost more. To ship your food to grocery stores, that's going to cost more. Everything is going to cost more now. And that price is all going to fall on you, the consumer. That's why we're seeing the production price index go up, the consumer price index beginning to go up, and as a result, inflation will go up as well. That's the reality of the situation right now. And at the current prices, the amount of oil that Scott Bessent said that the measures would bring to the world market would be worth more than $14 billion for Tehran. So now Tehran's making more money off this. Russia's making more money off this. China's still getting their oil. But what about Japan? What about South Korea? What about some of these other countries? What about inside of Europe? You know, the United States gets a very small amount of their daily oil from the Persian Gulf, folks. By and large, we're very much energy independent. We're also not taking oil out of Venezuela. But the overall benchmark is still going to push those prices up because it's a global catastrophe. That's the truth of the matter right now. So there we go. We're seeing that we have to make concessions now. And now we're taking off these sanctions from the Iranians. It's amazing to me that we're in this position. I think the Iranians moving forward will want a mutual security cooperation treaty with the United States. That means ratified by our U.S. Senate. The way it's put into law. I do think that will be the step that they try to take. They will also push to remove all these sanctions off them, which again is crippling their economy. I do believe that will be the case. And if they make any, I guess you'd call it a pledge to get the U.S. bases out of the Middle East that, again, push harm to them, I think that might be something on the table for them too. Whether they get it or not, I can't say it to you. I have no idea. But I think that will be the route that they try to take. They will try to rid the Middle East of the U.S., Israel, global hegemony out of that region. And that will be, I would imagine, something pretty much remarkable if Iran were to pull that off. I don't see the United States going down that road. I don't think the United States would give them all that. But in order to stop this, and of course to protect Israel, I don't know what both countries would do in order to do that. Would they make those concessions? Would they make a peace treaty with them? Only time will tell. But I think Iran is going to be holding the cards in this one because, again, the United States and Israel did not plan for this type of response from them. And it's going to upset a lot of different countries when their economies are now in recessions and they continue to get much, much worse. And that is the result of the planning of both President Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu with all this. Oh, by the way, we got in Fox Business that electrical bills are now becoming a midterm problem that neither party can continue to ignore at this point. And what's the result of this? Well, we've got more volatile costs now, such as gasoline And electricity is a steady, unavoidable expense tied directly to our basic needs as Americans. Keeping the lights on, the heating and the cooling of our homes, powering everyday life. All this is a necessity to us, right? That's how things get to work. We're very much dependent on this. This makes this position very much politically sensitive at a time like this when we are in a midterm year. Which again, I've asked you, why would President Trump do this? This monthly frustration, this growing force, this pressure on him now politically in the midterm election when we're trying to hold on to both the House and the Senate. It's not looking good. I mean, how do you run on this? How do you back this? When you have a war that's now causing people to spend more when they go to the pump every day, or every time they go to the pump, I should say. When they see their heating bill, their cooling bill every month, when they see their electricity bill every month, and everything's going up, up, up. All this is playing a big role on how people are going to be viewing these midterm elections. People are not going to forget this too, by the way. Now, we're looking at the latest figures from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. Put the national average at $17.24 per kilowatt hour, up some 6% from earlier this year. And by the way, at the beginning of the year, it was already up about 9%, I do believe it was. But I told you that was going to happen before this war even started. So we're seeing just a price increase already from the start of the year. And now it's continuing to go up as a result of higher liquefied natural gas, for example, higher oil costs. Again, all these things play a role in this, and we're just getting started in this. And by the way, that jump outpaces wage growth for many of these households that, again, are trying to make ends meet. That's a big problem. Again, aside from rent, which is up, insurance costs, which we know are very much up, groceries, which are now going to be up as a result of this increase in the global oil benchmarks. All of this is going to continue to go up, folks. But I think one of the funniest things about this article, too, it says that North Dakota has the lowest average residential electricity rate in the country at $11.02 per kilowatt hour, while Hawaii, an outlier, again because of its geographic isolation, of course, being in the middle of the Pacific, has the highest, which is $41.62 per kilowatt hour. We look at states like Nebraska, Idaho, Oklahoma, Arkansas, also rank among some of the cheapest states, while California, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New York, might as well throw New Jersey in there too, it's up there, join Hawaii amongst the most expensive states. And isn't it interesting? What do all these states have in common? Well, the latter have all Democrats leading them, and all the other states have Republicans leading it. Isn't that interesting? The lowest national average for residential electricity rates are lowest amongst Republican governors, and all the higher rates are among the Democrats. What's Gavin Newsom going to do about this one? By the way, look at the gas prices in California right now if you want to make yourself sick. Is that any reason why the mass exodus continues out of California, folks? I think so. But look at this. Many of the higher cost states, again, run by Democrats, they're pursuing more aggressive clean energy transitions. By the way, they're also fleeing the oil refineries from these states, like California, for example. They can't get out of there quick enough, it seems, but they're moving out. They're tired of the regulations. They're tired of the red tape. They're tired of always being vilified by the government coming out of Sacramento, always. And they've said, we've had enough. We're moving. We're going to Texas. We're going to this state. They're getting out. And as a result of that, you take all of that refining with them. You take all of that money with them. That's why California is hemorrhaging in their GDP now. Again, it's still a massive economy. But as these tech companies decide to leave with this wealth tax, these oil refineries do the same, where they can't operate freely. It's a terrible state to run your business. And they say, we'll just go do it somewhere else then. We'll make even more money. We don't have to be in California. So that oil now that's necessary for the demand of people in California, the roughly 39 million people in California, that oil now has to be trucked in. That gas has got to be trucked into the state now. That costs more. And when Gavin Newsom is closing down pipelines, for example, when he's shutting down offshore drilling, for example, which he's fighting President Trump on right now, who wants to get that up and running outside of Santa Barbara, all of these things play a factor in the cost of gas inside California, which again is rising very, very quickly. You're seeing a massive hike in gas prices inside the state of California right now. There's some stations inside Los Angeles, by the way, that are hitting over $8 per gallon for regular unleaded. Just let that sink in right now. That's not only a supply and demand issue, folks. That is a government issue. That is coming out of you, the politician. When you destroy your energy infrastructure inside California, by the way, which has Kern County, which is in about the Central Valley of California, just north of Los Angeles, has some of the richest oil fields in the world. And because drilling permits are so difficult to get, the amount of which you can drill because of the environmental regulations inside California, you can't drill that out of the ground. It makes it much more difficult. And as a result, your gas prices are much, much higher. Then, of course, they put gas taxes on you, too. That's wonderful, isn't it? But this is the stance. You're relying on older, more complex grid systems because you're not replacing them. These factors then raise the costs much higher. And then you look at several of the cheapest states. So these are deep red states, as I just mentioned to you. The Republicans are likely to seize on reinforcing broader arguments about their energy policy, their cost of living. And as a result of that, the prices are much, much lower because they're investing in that type of infrastructure long term. It's partisan control right now, folks. It's partisan control, and as a result, people in these red states are paying less, and people in these blue states, run by these lunatics like Gavin Newsom, they're paying a lot more for the same damn gas. It's unbelievable when you think about it. But folks, I mean, this is the truth of the matter. Where do we go from here? I don't know. I don't know what Gavin Newsom's going to do about this, if he'll just allow this to continue on, if he'll just blame President Trump. And by the way, President Trump has some blame on this, absolutely. But you're not paying that much more because of President Trump. You're paying a little bit more. You're paying a lot more because of Gavin Newsom. Don't let him fool you on that. Oh, by the way, folks, the other catastrophe going on inside the United States domestically, it's on ABC News, says record numbers of TSA officers are now called out as of Saturday as DHS shutdown continues on. See what the Democrats are doing. Look what the Democrats are doing with this DHS shutdown right now, because they oppose ICE law enforcement inside the country. Look at this. And now, of course, these very important positions inside the United States, like TSA, for example, people are calling out now. On Saturday, you had the highest call-out rate for TSA officers at airports since the Department of Homeland Security shutdown began. And now you're seeing over 3,250 officers calling out as a result of this. What does that mean? Well, when you go to the airport, the security lines are now growing nationwide. And you're now having to go 3-4 hours in advance before your flight to even try to make it. We're seeing lines like we've never seen before. Now, over the weekend, President Donald Trump posted on his social media platform that he would now start deploying ICE agents to these airports on Monday, unless Democrats agree to finally funding this package to end the DHS shutdown. Now, the Democrats are now demanding that these reinforcements for ICE to continue on, and, of course, border protection policies before they will even move to start funding DHS again. I mean, I'm looking at pictures here. This is unbelievable that people have to put up with this nonsense, where they're just trying to travel freely on their way, trying to get to their destination. They've got to deal with this nonsense. But this is brilliant for the Democrats. Look who they can pin this on. You never saw lines like this under Joe Biden, did you? Of course not. It's all the Republicans' mismanagement. Well, really and truly, it's just simply the Democrats don't want to fund the enforcement of DHS. That's what it comes down to. They don't want to fund border security. They don't want to fund ICE. Now, that money is still allocated for them right now in those particular aspects of the department. That way, they're still able to operate right now. They're still getting paid. But it's the other people in these areas, like, for example, TSA, that are not getting paychecks. So why would they show up to work? Why would they do this? You got Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy saying on Sunday that they're now looking to have ICE agents that are trained, that can assist with airport security. And ICE has remained funded through, obviously, these appropriations, again, because of the Trump tax policies and what have you, from the big, beautiful bill that took place last year. So that funding is already allocated. But it's not allocated for the TSA. I hope that makes sense to you. Now, Tom Homan has come out saying that he doesn't want this to happen. He doesn't want this at all. So I don't know that this will happen, if Trump will, push for this to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if anybody does. But this looks bad. This is the point of it. This looks very bad. So now, do the Republicans cave and say, we'll give the Democrats what they want so we can get this up and funded again? We'll make sure that ICE officers aren't wearing masks, that there's sensitivity training or whatever nonsense they want with ICE. I don't know. Only time will tell if the Republicans continue to fold with this. Tom Homan took and said that we're simply there to help TSA do their job in areas that don't need their specialized expertise, such as, screening through the x-ray machine. Not trained on that. We won't do that. So I don't know how much TSA will be helped if we send ICE agents in. That means we're taking ICE agents off the streets from doing their jobs, which is getting illegal aliens off the streets, to do the job of these other government officials. But he did go on to say that there are roles we can play to release TSA officers from their non-significant role, such as guarding an exit, so that they can get back to scanning machines and move people along quicker. Well, people are going to get fed up with this. But they're going to get fed up at the wrong people. They're going to get fed up at the Republicans. They're going to get fed up about President Trump. But it's really the Democrats who are, again, holding all the cards when you have a slim majority like we have right now inside the House. Yep. So the Democrats are playing this out. They like this. They want this. This is what they want right now. Create chaos. This is what it comes down to. The Republicans look bad. It's a midterm year. They're going to say, geez, those Republicans, look, I missed my flight. I had to wait 8 hours. I got to vote Democrat again to get everything moving along. This is their strategy. This is how they wield this power right now, by doing things like this right now. And by the way, look at these pictures in this article in ABC. It's ridiculous that people have to wait in lines like this. Back before 2001, you just were able to basically get on a plane. You walk through, you checked in, boom, you're on a plane. You didn't have to go through, put the luggage here, take your shoes off, go through the x-ray, wait for your stuff to come through, wait to get checked. I don't go through these x-rays either, by the way. I always get patted down like a criminal. I always opt out of this, by the way. The x-rays are dangerous, folks. I don't know how else to tell it to you. That's just the truth of the matter. I always opt out of this. I say, I'm not going to go through this. I opt out. Now, sometimes I have to wait longer. Okay, fine, whatever. But I don't need to be going through this and getting x-rayed like this. And, and as a return, I get treated like a criminal. I have to get patted down in front of everybody. But this is where we are as a country. And by the way, is this all necessary? I don't think so. I'm just going to tell you bluntly, I don't think this is all necessary. I just don't believe that. But this is where we are as a country, folks. We have all this extra security on us, and of course, do we feel freer? Of course not. Why would we? Let's move on to the other aspect about what the Democrats want, and it's the Save America Act. Yep. Now, Mike Lee out of Utah took to the Senate floor over the weekend and delivered a methodical takedown of the Democrats' hypocrisy and, of course, their argument against the SAVE Act. Now, Democrats have made all these kinds of accusations. They've come out against the SAVE Act. They've called it racist. They're talking about voter suppression somehow. They've claimed now that it will somehow stop a married woman now from voting. I don't understand any of this from them. But they've claimed that it will now cost people a lot of money to get a passport, for example, to register to vote. Okay. Folks, they're acting like we don't have to have IDs for everyday life. To operate a car, to drive in a car. These are things you need to do to, for example, purchase alcohol, to buy a firearm, to really do a lot of things. To get a job, you need a driver's license, don't you? Unless, of course, you're working under the table if you're an illegal alien. But this is it. This is what they try to push to us. I mean, they've tried almost every excuse under the sun here. But poll after poll continues to show that most Americans, by the way, really want this. They want the SAVE Act. They want all the provisions in it because it's a safeguard to protect our right as citizens to vote. So what we need, it's not racist if you need it for example, to operate a vehicle, to get a job, to rent or to buy a home, to purchase alcohol, to buy a firearm. That's not racist, but voting in an election is racist somehow. Make it make sense, please. So they keep coming up with these excuses, but I think Senator Lee really hit the nail on the head here. I'll let you listen to him speak right now. A brilliant takedown, too, by the way. Take a listen.
They have instead said we don't need the Save America Act because, and this one is a kicker, because it's already against the law. That, Mr. President, under these circumstances, is analogous to saying we don't need a law allowing police to issue citations and monitor traffic at intersections governed by a stop sign because it's already against the law in our state to run a stop sign. And even though police officers under the status quo are prohibited from monitoring intersections and taking note of when someone runs a stop sign, we know that people don't run stop signs because it's against the law. That is directly, closely, tightly analogous to what they're saying here. We don't need a law making our laws prohibiting non-citizen voting because it's already against the law. And we take that defiant, illogical, absurd position, even knowing that we've made it impossible to detect and therefore prosecute and punish anyone who breaks that law.
He's absolutely right about this. It's ridiculous. His point is very clear on this. The fact that Democrats have yet to make a reasonable argument as to why they would vote against the SAVE Act, it's already illegal. Okay, so if it's already illegal to do all these things, again, vote without an ID, vote illegally, if you're not required to vote in a federal or state election, then why not go through with this then? That's the big question. If you need to show an ID to vote, and it's illegal if you do it, why wouldn't you be behind that? Why wouldn't you say, okay, we'll vote for it. We'll vote on this. It doesn't make any sense unless you want people to do that. And by the way, this rhetoric isn't swaying people against this position. The public wants this. So I really would like to see John Thune get to the Senate floor and say, hey, let's put this to a vote right now. We'll do a talking filibuster. If you want, you can come down here and explain to everybody in the country why you don't want these safeguards in place. I would love to see it. I think that would be wonderful, by the way. I just don't know if we'll get to see it anytime soon. We should, though. We absolutely should. This is the way we save our elections. This is the way we ensure election integrity, by the way. And just if you think that, Senator Lee, for example, is speaking out of bounds here, that, we don't have this massive voter fraud. Let me point your attention to another article coming out of the LA Times. So there, that Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco, who is the leading Republican candidate for governor right now, which I think is pretty interesting too, by the way. In a state like California, which we're told is completely blue, by the way, it's deep blue. Okay, fine, whatever. That he is leading everybody else. When usually in these races, you'll see the leading Democrat, and then the next up kin is usually the Republican. Okay, and then of course you have about 7 or 8 other Democrats behind that person, maybe another Republican somewhere down the line. But in this race right now, it's been interesting. You've seen Chad Bianco, and you've seen Steve Hilton, the other Republican nominee, candidate for office. coming in usually first and second in these races. Pretty interesting, I'd have to say, right now. So I don't know if there's a seismic shift happening in California. I can only pray that there is. I think they would do a lot of good to switch it up and get a Republican in office for the first time in over 15 years. That would be beneficial to Californians, I think. But what he did, he seized more than 650,000 ballots from last November's election to determine if these were counted illegally. So what did he do? He said the investigation is simple. We're going to physically count the ballots and compare that result with the total votes that were recorded. Seems pretty simple, right? Now, the unusual probe obviously drove the Attorney General, Rob Bonta, who is a communist, by the way, just wanted to clarify that, who made a statement saying that it is unprecedented in both scope and scale and appears not to be based on facts or evidence. Well, folks, I think the facts and evidence would be apparent if we counted the ballots, right? So you got critics, meanwhile, said that Bianco's ballot seizure is a threat to democracy now and another attempt by Republican election deniers to disenfranchise voters. Interesting, because the voting's already taken place. Why would we not want to, again, check to make sure that the people that should be voting, the people that have casted their votes at these election booths, right, that are all online, by the way, why would we not want to make sure that the ballots now that we've collected match up with what the machine is printing out? Why would we not want that? Wouldn't that ensure and prevent, of course, the election denial? I think so. Bonta came out and said there is no indication anywhere inside the United States of widespread voter fraud. Counts, recounts, hand counts, audits, and court cases all support this. So what do you care then? He's the sheriff of the county. If he has any reason to believe there is something out of the ordinary, any irregularities, he should be the one coming out and determining this. Now, according to Bonta's office, Bianco's department on February 26th seized about 1,000 boxes of ballot materials in Riverside County related to the November election for Proposition 50, which would, of course, temporarily redraw the state's congressional districts to favor Democrats in response to partisan redistricting in Republican states, including Texas. So this was, of course, California's attempt to say, we're going to also gerrymander. We're going to get rid of 5 districts now because Texas is going to be gaining roughly 5 districts. So we're going to do this now. We're going to balance this up. So instead of having 9 Republicans in a state that roughly votes 40% Republican, which is already extremely low, by the way, for congressional representation, we're now going to give the Republicans 4 seats. We're going to redraw this. We're going to make sure we gerrymander specifically to make sure we remove 5 Republicans sitting in Congress right now. Isn't that remarkable? It's amazing. It's amazing we have these type of propositions. By the way, this wasn't even popular in California too, by the way. Even in California, 9 out of 10 people that were questioned about this and asked about taking the redistricting and the ability to do so away from this so-called independent committee that drew this, so it wouldn't be just one of the parties writing this. They were going to have one side do it now, so we're going to have the Democrats do it. They're going to have the Democrats who are in power write these maps up, and somehow it passed with 64%. Okay, fine. Let's say that's true. All Bianco wants to do is check in Riverside County, which, again, he is the sheriff of. He's one of the few people that are, aside from the DA, people that are elected to represent the entire county in Riverside County. So, Bonta can cry all he wants. I don't think anything's going to take place with this. I think if Bianco finds election fraud, though, I think that'd be very much interesting, though, as to what would actually take place. Now, Bonta's claim here, of course, is that, there was 3.3 million votes in favor of the Prop 50 being passed. Therefore, what's it going to matter? Doesn't matter, of course. Inside Riverside County, I think it was 82,000 ballots were the number of ballots that were cast over to the 56% margin, allowing the county to say, yes, we want to gerrymander. In our county that's red, we want to make sure we allow the Democrats to steal more seats. Makes sense, right, folks? Okay. Anyways. So this is interesting. I think what we'll see here, if he does find some actual irregularity with this, and if he can actually prove this, I think he should push this to the federal government. Why do I say that? Because no one in California is going to do anything. Rob Bonta's not going to do anything if you found voter irregularities, or you found that people were voting that shouldn't vote. They're just simply not going to do anything about it. Shirley Weber, again appointed by Gavin Newsom, do you think she's going to do anything about it? By the way, they've both vowed to fight federal interference now that could affect voting in California. Why? Because they want the power. This is what it always comes down to. It always comes down to power. That's what these Democrats want, and that's what they want to get. Again, Bianco could be outspoken about President Trump all he wants. If he finds voter fraud in California, it has nothing to do with President Trump. It has to do with the way Democrats are running elections inside the state of California. So I hope if there are irregularities inside this county, a red county, you can imagine what it's like inside a blue county, like, for example, Los Angeles. I would love to see it. By the way, there are about 1.2 million illegals just in LA alone. I would love to see, for example, if any of them are voting in these federal elections. You can bet your bottom dollar that they are. Absolutely 100%. All right, folks, we have about 4 minutes remaining in the program. Let me go over this article I have for us in, what is this? Gadget review? Okay, this is a good one. I can sum this up pretty quickly. We got about 3 minutes. Let me go over this. It says here that CIA's 1965 declassified files now expose weather as a U.S. war weapon, igniting RFK Jr.'s fight to halt sky toxins. What is all this one about? This one is a good one. We've seen these before. We've seen the chemtrails in the skies. I don't think anyone is unaware of these things, unless, of course, you have just looked down at your feet the entire time when you walk outside on a blue sky day, right? But here it goes. It says Americans have now breathed this air laced with unexplained metals for decades now. But two long-hidden 1965 government files now prove unequivocally that the United States military has turned the skies into a battlefield decades ago, without your consent, without any oversight, without your knowledge of this. You didn't vote for it. You didn't want this. But now we've got these toxic results still felt in our lungs, still hitting our soil, hitting the animals, particularly your livestock, anything in the ocean, and of course, our families. Now, these papers, quietly achieved after declassification, detail plans to dump chemicals from planes owned by the government to alter so-called storms and monsoons, dating all the way back to President Lyndon Baines Johnson. Now, the resurfacing exposes the lie that weather modification was a conspiracy theory, if you will, or whatever they try to make up about this. You know, you wear a tinfoil hat if you believe that these lines in the sky, these white lines that plume out and get bigger and block out the sun, are just made up. You're making this up. It's a contrail. That's what it is. By the way, I implore anyone that flies in a plane to sit behind where the jet engine is and to look at the chemtrail the entire time you fly. I think you'll be very interested to see nothing coming out of that engine, the entirety. Now, there are chemtrails, by the way, but they happen in very, very rare situations. It has to be a certain type of weather happening for a plane today to create them. Just thought I'd tell you that. But now this has given RFK Jr. a lot of power now as health secretary, and now he's vowed to rip the program apart under MAHA to protect human health and to revive clean air for everyone. If he were able to do this, if he were able to come out and say, you know what, I can figure this out, we can end this right now, here's the evidence, we're going to stop this. If a president can put this into effect, a president like President Trump, if he's willing to, can come in and say, hey, we're done with this. We're done with the chemtrails. We're done with the aerial spraying, if you will. We're done with the aluminum, the barium, the strontium. God knows what else is in these. I've been told also there's graphene oxide, which is said to have been in the COVID vaccinations as well. We're done with this. We're done with this, and we are going to stop this, and we will end chemtrails. Can you imagine how remarkable that would be if President Trump were able to pull that off? That would actually be remarkable to the extreme. I would take that. I would take that very much so. I would love to see that take place, folks. We shouldn't be sprayed with this. As the article says, we don't want it, you don't want it, nobody wants it. So let's end it. Let's hope RFK Jr. can do this. I would love it if he did. That'll do it for today's show, everyone. Thanks again for being here. I hope you'll share the show with other people. Make sure to share, like. Make sure you keep your mind strong, body strong, staying prepped with food, anything you need. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you back here tomorrow for more groundbreaking news on the next Marco Duray Show.